Thanksgiving was already cold, but nothing could have prepared me for the chill I felt when my sister pointed to the garage and said, "You're used to scraps." She didn't whisper or hesitate, just handed me a paper plate, turned her back, and walked into her perfect dining room, where the family had gathered under golden light and glittering chandeliers. I stood there for a second, holding that flimsy plate, my kids, Mikey and Ayla, 12 and 9, standing behind me. Neither of them said a word, just looked at me, waiting to see what would happen next. I couldn't cry, not in front of them, not after everything we'd already been through. So I smiled, led them through the side door into the garage. It smelled of gasoline and dust. A lone folding table was pushed against the wall, with 2 metal chairs and a cardboard box as a makeshift seat. No decorations, no warmth, just silence and the sound of forks scraping plastic. That's where we ate our Thanksgiving dinner. The kids didn't complain, sitting with straight backs. Their eyes were fixed on the food. Ayla gently pushed her sweet potato pie with her fork. Mikey clenched his jaw, the way he does when he's trying not to cry. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I just looked at them and realized I was done begging to be accepted. And then it happened. Outside the house, a black limousine pulled up. Not a car, a limousine. Everything froze. I could see their silhouettes through the curtains, curious, confused, crowding the front door. But the car didn't stop at the main entrance. The driver circled the house and parked by the garage entrance. The engine cut off, and a woman stepped out. Tall, elegant, in a deep navy coat that even from a distance looked expensive. She glanced around and asked clearly, "I'm looking for the lady of the house." When I stood up, their faces dropped. I hadn't planned to go to my sister's for Thanksgiving. Last year, I promised myself it would be the last time. But the kids started asking, "Will Aunt Veronica be there? Will Grandma remember my name this time?" So there I was, ironing a second-hand dress and baking cornbread in our tiny kitchen, pretending everything was fine. We live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. It's not luxurious, but it's clean, warm, and full of love. I work long shifts as an administrator at a pediatric clinic and freelance as a writer on the side. There's no time or money for extras, but my kids never complain. Mikey's 12, already taller than me, all quiet strength and thoughtful eyes. Ayla's 9, and she still believes the world is mostly kind, though I see that belief fading a little each year. On Thanksgiving morning, I stood in front of the mirror, wondering if my old boots were decent enough. I told myself I wasn't trying to impress anyone, that I was doing this for the kids. But honestly, part of me still wanted to be seen. My sister Veronica lives in a gated community where even the trash cans look wealthy. Her house is massive and cold, smelling of lemon polish and things you're not supposed to touch. She married well, as our mom loves to say. Blake's a lawyer, smug, polished, always with a Bluetooth earpiece and condescending remarks about public schools. They have 3 kids, a nanny, an SUV, and a housekeeper who barely speaks English. Veronica and I haven't been close since our teens. She was always perfect. Perfect grades, perfect hair, everything perfect. I was the one doodling in notebooks, full of potential but never quite making it. When I pulled up to their house, the party was already in full swing. I could hear laughter from the backyard and the clink of dishes through open windows. Taking a deep breath, I turned to the kids. "Ready?" Ayla nodded, clutching the sweet potato pie she'd helped me make. Mikey just said, "Let's get this over with." I knocked and walked in. No one greeted us at the door. They never do. It was the usual scene. I stepped in like a guest at my own family's holiday. My mom, Elaine, barely looked up from her glass of white wine. She sat on the edge of the couch, watching Veronica's kids perform a dance routine in the living room. "Hey, Ma," I said, setting the pie on the counter. She blinked, gave a vague smile, and turned back to her granddaughters. "Oh, you look tired," she tossed out, her tone sounding like concern, but really a judgment wrapped in softness. Veronica emerged from the kitchen in heels too high for someone mashing potatoes. "Oh, you brought something," she said, glancing at the pie. "Cute." Blake walked by with a glass of something amber. "Hey, Kel," he said, using the nickname I hate. "The kids have grown." No one offered us a seat, a drink, or a help yourself. There was no warm gesture, no kindness. My cousins chatted, poured wine, passed appetizers from one manicured hand to another. And I stood in the corner with my 2 kids, smiling through the awkwardness, as always. Ayla whispered, "Can I give Grandma my pie?" I nodded. She walked over and offered it to my mom like it was a treasure. Mom took it, glanced at it for half a second, and said, "Sweet potato. How nice." That's when I knew I'd made a mistake coming, but it was too late to leave. Dinner was being served, and I thought maybe they'd at least seat us at the table. "Just 1 hour," I told myself. "I can handle anything for an hour." But then Veronica walked in with a stack of paper plates. Our eyes met, and I swear she smirked. "We're a bit tight on space," she announced loudly, as if addressing the whole room. "So I've set you up in the garage." I didn't understand at first. "The garage?" I repeated, almost laughing, thinking it was some weird joke. She nodded, completely serious. "You're used to scraps, right?" The room fell silent. No one said a word. And there I was again, unwanted, unseen, pushed aside like a stray dog that had slipped in through the back door. The kids looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I smiled, took the plates from her hands, and led them to the garage. The garage was cold, not just physically, though there was a thin draft seeping through the side door and a concrete floor that sucked the warmth from our feet. But it was emotionally cold. A place not meant for people, let alone family. It smelled of oil, cardboard, and neglect. Against the far wall was a folding table, 2 chairs, and a box. No tablecloth, no decorations, just a roll of paper towels and some flimsy utensils. In the corner, an old car seat from one of Veronica's kids gathered dust. A silent insult. Mikey sat down slowly. Ayla looked around, then touched my arm. "Are we eating here?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She didn't say anything else, just climbed onto the box and rested her elbows on the table. Her dress rode up awkwardly, and I saw her trying to smooth it down, as if it mattered, as if anyone would notice. I dished out the food they'd given us. Slices of turkey, barely warm mashed potatoes with no gravy, and green beans that looked microwaved. No cranberry sauce, no rolls, no seconds. No one came to check on us. Mikey held his fork for a long time before finally stabbing a piece of turkey. "Why did they kick us out here?" he asked, not looking at me. I didn't know how to answer. Ayla's eyes shimmered, but she blinked quickly, trying to be brave. "Did we do something wrong?" I swallowed hard. "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong." "But they're all inside," she said. "And we're out here. It doesn't feel like family." I could barely breathe. My chest tightened with a pain that felt more like exhaustion than suffering. Exhaustion from years of trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I didn't matter. I wanted to storm back in, flip the table, scream what I thought of their fake kindness. But instead, I looked at my kids and felt something stronger. I felt shame. Not for doing anything wrong, but for letting it go this far. For dragging them here. For convincing myself, year after year, that maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd accept me, respect me, see me. My whole life I'd built myself to not be a burden. I never asked for help, never took up space, always said, "Thank you," even when kindness was hollow. I thought if I played by the rules, smiled, worked hard, kept quiet, I'd eventually be let in. But I was still in the garage. And it wasn't just about the table. They were telling me I wasn't part of the real family, that I was an inconvenience, that I didn't measure up. And my kids felt it too, maybe for the first time, but I knew they'd remember it forever. Mikey looked at me again, his jaw tight. "Can we just leave?" His voice wasn't angry or even sad. It was empty, and that hurt more. I squeezed his shoulder. "Soon." We sat in silence, eating slowly, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses filtering through the walls like a cruel echo. Every so often, we'd hear someone open the fridge on the other side of the wall or the dishwasher hum, but no one came out. No one checked on us. I heard Veronica's sharp, performative laugh like she was on stage, and my mom's soft reply, something about the wine being perfect this year. Not a word about us, not even a fake one. Finally, Ayla spoke. "I miss our home, even if it's small." Mikey added, "It's not small. It's just right." I could have cried, but I didn't. I smiled at them, even though it felt like my face might crack from the effort. "We'll go home soon," I said. "We'll make hot chocolate, play Monopoly, and be thankful for what we have, not what they think we deserve." They both nodded. That's when I realized what I should have understood years ago. This wasn't my family anymore. Blood makes you relatives. Behavior makes you family. And my family was sitting right in front of me. As I started clearing our plates and getting ready to leave, I couldn't help but glance back at the house. That's when headlights lit up the driveway. A long black car pulled in, slow and quiet. A limousine, not an SUV belonging to some guest or one of Blake's clients. A limousine with tinted windows and a driver in a cap. Mikey squinted through the grimy window of the garage door. "What's that?" The engine shut off. We waited. The back door opened and a woman stepped out. Everything changed. The limousine door didn't swing open right away. It opened slowly, deliberately, as if the person inside wasn't in a rush, as if they knew they'd already captured everyone's attention. Even from the garage, I stood frozen, gripping the edges of the paper plate I hadn't thrown away. The kids froze too. Even they knew this was unusual. Limousines don't just show up in quiet suburban neighborhoods on Thanksgiving. Mikey moved closer to the window. "Mom, do you see this?" I nodded. The house suddenly went eerily quiet. Through the small glass in the garage door, I could just make out silhouettes behind the living room curtains. Heads turned, figures shifting behind the drapes. I imagined the conversations inside coming to a halt. The driver stepped out first. Tall, pale, in gloves and a pristine uniform. He said something to the passenger, then stepped back and opened the door. And there she was. A woman, maybe in her 60s or 70s. Gracefully aged, tall and elegant, in a long, deep navy wool coat that whispered wealth. Not flashy, not gaudy, just real. She looked important, but not the kind who needs to prove it. She didn't head for the front door like everyone expected. She turned toward the side gate and walked straight to the garage. Mikey whispered, "Is she coming here?" Ayla stood slowly, pressing against me, unsure whether to be nervous or excited. The woman stopped at the garage door. I cracked it open halfway. She didn't flinch at the cold, the draft, or the sight of 3 strangers with paper plates at a folding table. Instead, she smiled. "Excuse me," she said in a soft, calm voice, like she was asking for directions in a bookstore. "I'm looking for the lady of the house." I assumed she meant Veronica, maybe a friend, a client, or one of Blake's colleagues, but something told me she already knew the answer. I swallowed and replied, "That's my sister. She's inside." The woman tilted her head slightly. "But you're Kelly. Kelly Rivers." She took a slow step forward. Yes, you're the one I came to see. The garage fell dead silent. Ayla gripped my fingers tighter. Mikey straightened, as if his instincts were torn between protecting me or running back to the house. I asked cautiously, "Do we know each other?" She smiled again, but this time there was something more in her smile. A kind of recognition. "My name is Margot Ellington. I'm the founder of Women Forward. We run support and mentorship programs across the state. About 5 years ago, you volunteered at one of our shelters, and afterward you wrote a series of blog posts. Honest, heartfelt, beautifully written." My eyes widened. I remembered. It was right after I left my husband. I was living on a friend's couch with the kids, scraping by on pennies. At night, I volunteered at a women's shelter just to feel useful again. I wrote about that experience not for attention, but to make sense of myself. I posted it on a personal blog that maybe had 20 readers. "I followed your work ever since," she continued. "You have a gift for making people feel seen. That's needed now more than ever." I couldn't think, just stared at her. She went on. "We're hosting a series of talks at our national summit next spring. I want you to be our keynote speaker. We'll cover everything: travel, accommodations, childcare if needed. And we're offering a contract to publish your story. Your voice matters, Kelly, and it needs to be heard." I didn't answer right away. I felt the weight of the moment, warmth creeping up my neck. Part of me still couldn't believe a woman like her would come for someone like me. Mikey broke the silence. "Wait, she wants you to speak?" Ayla turned to me, her eyes full of hope. "Because of your writing?" Margot looked at them both and said, "Because your mom is extraordinary." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I glanced back at the house. I couldn't see their faces, but I knew they were watching. I felt it, the confusion, the tension, the disbelief radiating from the living room to the garage. They'd sent me out here to keep me small. But now a limousine was parked in their driveway, and a woman in a navy coat was asking for me. I turned to Margot and nodded. "I'd be honored." And in that moment, everything started to change. Margot extended her hand, not dramatically, not for show, but with the quiet confidence of someone offering not just an opportunity, but respect. Real, earned, long overdue respect. I stepped forward, my fingers closing around hers. And in that moment, something in me grew taller. Not from pride, but from the realization that comes when someone finally sees the real you. "I'll grab my coat," I said, almost breathless. She smiled. "You won't need it. We'll take care of you." Mikey grabbed our leftover food, holding it like precious cargo. Ayla took my hand again. Her eyes sparkled like she was watching a movie and realized her mom was the main character. We followed Margot to the limousine. The cold November air brushed our faces, feeling like a new beginning. As we got into the car, I glanced back at the house. The dining room curtains were still slightly parted, revealing the whole scene. Veronica stood with a wine glass frozen in her hand. Her mouth was slightly open, like she couldn't process what she'd seen. Blake loomed behind her, his arm hanging limply at his side. My mom sat at the end of the table, squinting, trying to make sense of it all. They looked bewildered, not angry, not embarrassed, just stunned, like the universe had flipped the script and handed the spotlight to the one they'd pushed into the shadows. The car door closed with a soft thud, sealing us into a world that, for the first time, felt like mine. The seats were plush, warm, the light inside soft and soothing. Margot said something to the driver through a small window, then turned to me. "We've reserved a table downtown. We could discuss the summit, the contract, and what support you'll need in the coming months." I nodded, still a bit in shock. "Wow, yes, that sounds perfect." Ayla whispered, "Is this like being famous?" I laughed. Not from arrogance, but from a joy that slipped out before I could hold it back. "No, baby," I said. "This is what it feels like to be respected." Mikey sat across from us, taking it all in. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. The way his shoulders relaxed, the way he finally looked proud instead of protective, that was enough. As the limousine pulled out of the driveway, I caught one last glimpse in the side mirror. The house looked smaller, not physically, but symbolically. It wasn't something I needed anymore. I wasn't hoping for a seat at that table, wasn't fighting for a piece of that world. I was building my own table, one where my kids would never wonder if they were wanted. Dinner that night was like a dream. Linen tablecloths, real silverware, warm bread in a basket, and waiters who called me ma'am like I mattered. But the real magic wasn't in the food or the service. It was in the conversation. Margot wanted to hear my whole story, every bit of it. She listened not to respond or correct, but to understand. She took notes as I talked about the struggles of being a single mom, about how people make you feel like a failure just for surviving. She nodded when I described staying up until 2 a.m., writing blog posts after putting the kids to bed. She smiled when I told her how Ayla helped me color code job applications, and how Mikey once Googled how to pay rent with no money because he heard me crying in the kitchen. "We need your voice," she said again. "People think inspiration has to come from loud, glamorous lives, but the bravest stories are the quiet fighters who keep showing up, even when no one's watching." When the bill came, she waved it off. "You've paid enough already. Let us take care of this." The ride home was quiet, not because we had nothing to say, but because peace doesn't make noise. I tucked Ayla into bed, and before I turned off the light, she said, "I'm glad they sent us to the garage." I blinked. "Glad?" She nodded. "Yeah, because if they hadn't, the limousine wouldn't have known where to find us." That stopped me cold. She was right. Sometimes you're pushed to the sidelines so you can find the path meant for you, or so it can find you. I kissed her forehead. "You're so smart. I get it from you," she replied. And that's when I finally understood. They didn't break me that day. They revealed me. It's been almost a year since that Thanksgiving, and in some ways, I'm still catching up to the woman I became in that garage. Some changes happened fast. The emails and calls that poured in after Margot's team announced me as the keynote speaker for their summit. The book contract that arrived with the subject line, "Your Voice Matters." The way people suddenly started remembering my name, not as Veronica's sister or Elaine's daughter, but as Kelly. But other changes were quieter, the kind that happen between heartbeats. When you stop apologizing for who you are, stop shrinking to make others comfortable, when you finally believe your story doesn't need permission to be told. The summit speech was both terrifying and beautiful. I stood on stage in front of hundreds of women, CEOs, teachers, single moms, students, and told the truth about the garage, my kids, the years I spent trying to be small enough to fit into a family that would never make room for me. I saw strangers cry, nod, line up afterward to say, "Thank you, that was me." The book came out a few months later. We called it More Than Scraps. I cried when I saw the cover. My name in big letters, not buried in fine print, not hidden behind someone else's. My name, my words, my worth. The money didn't change my life, but the recognition did. Mikey started writing too. He keeps a journal now, and last week he read me a poem he wrote called "Chairs Don't Make a Table." He doesn't talk about that Thanksgiving anymore, but I know it left a mark. And it seems he's learning to turn it into something good. Ayla's still curious, kind, always watching. She asked if we could host Thanksgiving this year, just us and a few friends. No folding chairs, just couches, pillows, and warm food. So we did. The living room was too small for everyone to sit at a table, but no one cared. People ate on their laps, on the floor, laughing, taking seconds. There were candles, music, and love. Real love, wrapping around everything like a soft blanket. No one asked why we weren't at Veronica's, and I didn't explain. My mom sent a short text that morning. "Hope you're doing well. I miss you sometimes." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "We're good. Hope you are too." No anger, no bitterness, just peace. Because here's what I learned from that day in the garage. You can spend years trying to earn love from people who don't know how to give it. Or you can give that love to yourself and watch everything change. There's power in walking away. There's power in building your own table. And sometimes, when you least expect it, the universe sends a limousine to remind you. Just because they didn't see your worth doesn't mean it wasn't there. It was, always was. And maybe being sent to the garage wasn't the insult I thought it was. Maybe it was the very crack of light I didn't know I needed. If this story means something to you, if you've ever been made to feel small, invisible, or not good enough, know that you're not alone. You never were. We all deserve a seat at the table. But if they won't make space for you, build your own. And trust me, the right people will come. If this story touched you, please give it a like. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. If you're new here or felt something real in this story, subscribe to the channel. We tell stories that matter, and yours might be next. Leave a comment below. Have you had your own garage moment or a time when everything unexpectedly changed? I read every comment and would love to hear your story. Thanks for watching and for being part of something bigger.